See, I look at Pierce and think maybe I don't need
Mayor, we're ready now.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to call this City Council meeting, the Durham City Council to order at 7 o'clock on Monday night, April the 5th. And certainly want to welcome everyone here tonight, my dear council colleagues, our wonderful staff, and all those people who are with us and online. And so glad to have you. Friends, as we meet tonight, I'm going to ask you to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Councilmember Reese, will you please lead us in the pledge to the flag?
I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and colleagues. Good evening to all the city staff and Durham residents watching at home. I will now say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Council Member. All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Schul,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Councilmember Freelon.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Middleton.
I'm here.
Councilmember Reese.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We have really great ceremonial items tonight, and I'm going to first call on Councilmember Middleton, who will be doing the honors for National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week proclamation. And I believe that Randy Beeman is here. Madam Clerk, if you could make Mr. Beeman available to be seen and heard, that would be great. And I'll turn the floor over to Councilmember Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, friends and all that are watching at home. Is Randy available? I don't see him. Is he? There he is. Hello. Good evening, Randy.
Good evening.
It is absolutely. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for this great honor and privilege. I'm particularly grateful to be reading this proclamation. When I was elected, I attempted to visit with every city department that we have, and we have some incredibly impressive people working for us. I have to honestly say, though, I don't think I was more impressed and moved by any other department than sitting with our emergency call takers. When people think of first responders, they tend to think of the flashy cars, which are the lights and sirens, police, fire, EMS. But our real first responders are the folk who answer the phone. And the folks that are on the way to the emergencies have an idea of what they're heading to. But when those calls come in, you never know what's going to be on the other end of that phone. And I sat through some actually heart-wrenching and harrowing situations when I've listened to our call takers in the 911 call center. I look forward after we get through this period, Randy, of getting back and visiting with that incredible team you have. So I just want to thank you for the incredible work you do. And I'm honored to read this proclamation to mark this important week. Proclamation for National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, paramedics, and firefighters is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers, paramedics, and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from residents and visitors who telephone the Durham Emergency Communication Center. And whereas public safety communications officers and call takers are the first and most critical contact our residents and visitors have with emergency services. And whereas public safety communications officers and call takers are the single vital link for our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety communications officers and call takers of the Durham Emergency Communications Center have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now, therefore, I, Stephen M. Schewel, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the week of April 11th through the 17th, 2021 as National Public Safety 911 Communications Officer Week in Durham, and hereby urge all citizens to take special note of this observance in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city safe. Witness my hand in the corporate seal of the City of Durham, North Carolina, this the 5th day of April 2021. Stephen M. Schewel, Mayor. Congratulations and thank you for the work you do in the entire department.
Thank you, Councilman Middleton. Thank you. And if I may take a moment and have a comments. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Pro Tem, council members, Madam Manager, city executive staff. It is indeed a great opportunity and pleasure to recognize our workforce here in Durham Emergency Communications Center. And Councilman Middleton, I remember very well when you participated with us, and that was a grand occasion for us. But I wanted to take a moment and put in perspective, sometimes we don't realize behind the scenes the amount of calls and what goes on. So I want to take a perspective from the national to state and to local home right here in Durham. Nationally, imagine for over 50 years now, our public have been relying upon 911 as the vital link to public service and emergency services for the fire, EMS, and police. So 240 million calls annually, 911 calls in our nation. North Carolina last year had 7.1 million 911 calls. And right here in Durham, 278,243 911 calls alone, and a total call volume for last year of over 500,000, 507,856 calls. That's our staff, men and women behind the scenes every day, day in and day out, working. It is such a privilege and an honor to work with these professionals and also to honor them during this opportunity in April. April is a great time where we celebrate our communicators. So it is with great respect and appreciation from you and all the residents of Durham for recognizing the team. And truly, as you said, Councilman Middleton, they are the first responders. Thank you very much, with great gratitude and appreciation. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beeman. Thank you, Councilmember Middleton. We have another great proclamation tonight. And this proclamation, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson is going to do the honors. And this is the proclamation for National Community Development Week. And Mr. Reginald Johnson is here, and I see him on screen. Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Reginald, for joining us tonight. I'm honored to present this proclamation for Community Development Week. National Community Development Week is designed to focus on local as well as national, national attention on the CDBG and home programs, which are which provide $1,200 grants to state and local governments to improve neighborhoods and communities for low and moderate income people. That's the CDBG program. And the home program provides an additional 600 grants to participating jurisdictions to provide decent, safe, and affordable housing for low-income households. And these programs have been instrumental in Durham's affordable housing work. They have allowed the city to successfully redevelop the Southside community, build the Denson apartments, which are primarily for homeless veterans, the Whitted apartments for low-income seniors, and also improve pedestrian signaling along a number of streets in the city. So we are very appreciative of this federal money that allows us to do so much for our community. And I'll go ahead and read our proclamation. Whereas the week of April 5th through April 9th, 2021 has been designated as National Community Development Week by the National Community Development Association to celebrate the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG program, and the Home Partnerships Home Program. And whereas since 1975, the CDBG program has provided annual funding and flexibility to local communities to provide decent, safe, and affordable housing, a suitable living environment, and economic opportunities to low and moderate income people. And whereas since 1992, the Home program has provided funding to local communities to create decent, safe, and affordable housing opportunities for low-income persons, with over 1 million units of affordable housing having been completed nationally using home funds. And whereas over the past 5 years, the city of Durham has received a total of $9,653,930 in CDBG funds and $5,030,898 in home funds. And whereas the city of Durham has used CDBG and home funds directly or in partnerships to address issues surrounding homelessness, including veteran homelessness, to promote homeownership opportunities for low and moderate income households, to develop hundreds of affordable rental units for low and very low income households, to provide repairs to homes of very low income seniors, to help revitalize neighborhoods, and to leverage millions of dollars in additional public and private investment within Durham neighborhoods. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Stephen M. Schewel, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, hereby proclaim April 5th through April 9th, 2021 as National Community Development Week in Durham in support of these two valuable programs that have made a tremendous contribution to the vitality of the city's housing stock, infrastructure, public services, and the economic vitality of our community. Witness my hand on the corporate seal of the City of Durham, North Carolina, this 5th day of April, 2021. Thank you, everyone. And Mr. Johnson, if you'd like to say a few words, please feel free.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We definitely thank you for reading the proclamation for Community Development Week. I accept this proclamation on behalf of the members of the staff of the Community Development Department. But more importantly, I also accept it on behalf of the Citizens Advisory Committee, whom you and the County Commission appoint to advise us on these types of programs. We have our Chair, LaVon Barnes, our Vice Chair, Brian Langloss, Janice Washington serves as the Secretary, and the very able Council Member Pierce Freelon serves as our liaison. And we also thank all of the other members of the Citizens Advisory Committee. As the Mayor Pro Tem outlined, this program, this funding has provided a valuable help to our community. Our goal is to make sure and ensure that it continues to do so. And we thank you for the recognition that you have provided for Community Development Week, for the Home Program and the Community Development Block Grant Program. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Those were some great ceremonial items tonight. All right, we're now going to move on to announcements by members of the council. Announcements, colleagues. Councilmember Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, colleagues. It's great to see you all again. I had two announcements tonight. The first is a little bit fun, and the second is a little more serious. First, I want to congratulate Durham resident Hubert Davis for being hired today as coach of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill men's basketball program. He lives directly adjacent to the city limits in the county, but he is still a Durham resident. We will claim him. I will claim him. I am a personal story. In addition to being my wife's college classmate and sitting about 10 seats away from him when he graduated, she did. So she has always been very partial to Coach Davis. for a time, we sent our children to the same school that Coach Davis and his wife do. And I will tell you that occasionally in the drop-off line in the morning, I got to exchange a few words with Coach Davis about how the team was doing, tried to import some wisdom around the college basketball front. Luckily, he never listened to me because the team has done really, really well. And so I miss those opportunities to really kind of float about 2 inches off the ground, because that's how excited I was to see him every day. In any event, Coach Davis, we wish you the best of luck coaching the very best college basketball team in the country, and certainly in North Carolina. So that's number one. So secondly, a week ago today, I had the opportunity to visit a brand new community that was recently completed here in Durham called the Willard Street Apartments. This is an 82 apartment building directly adjacent to Durham Station and very close to Durham's Amtrak station. This is a community of 82 apartments that are affordable to low-income families. That is, all the units are affordable to families making less than 60% of area median income, and a quarter of the units are reserved for those folks making less than 30% of area median income. And all 82 units are eligible for housing choice voucher holders. So many residents who use those vouchers won't pay anything out of pocket. The apartments themselves are extraordinary. I defy anyone who visited them, and I think most of us had a chance to do that last week, to go across the street to the market rate apartments they just finished building and tell me the difference. And I was lucky enough to see a couple of the families moving in yesterday. Yes, I did drive by to see if I could see some families moving in, and they were. I didn't impose myself on them, but I did want to mark the occasion in some way, because this is very personally meaningful to me, and I know for a number of my colleagues. This is an outstanding opportunity for the city of Durham to show people, both here in Durham, across North Carolina, across the country, what affordable housing can actually look like. You know, when this council, before I was even a member of this council, when this council was talking about the possibility of building affordable housing on this piece of property, there were folks in the city who were concerned about doing that because they were afraid it would somehow concentrate poverty in a way that wouldn't look good. I think anyone who takes a look at these apartments will see that they are incredible. The natural light is extraordinary. They have some of the best views of the city of Durham I've ever seen. And they are a truly great expression of what is possible when people of goodwill work together to find a way to make our city affordable for working families. I was especially excited to see that the developers of this project are two great nonprofit developers, partners, DHIC and Durham's own Self-Help, commissioned an artist to do a mural on the outside of the building. And the artists who were unsuccessfully getting hired, who applied but didn't get hired, they asked them to produce art for the common hallways throughout the property. And one of the first sets of paintings I saw was by a local artist named Darius Quarles. Full disclosure, I own a Darius Quarles. It's in my City Hall office. Anyone can come by and see it anytime you want. It's small, but that's okay. And there were a pair of pictures there, one portraits by him, one of Ann Atwater and one of Phil Freelon. And it was just such a great opportunity to see some of our Durham's best portrayed and focused and prominently displayed in this particular location. I did want to say a few thanks about this because it truly takes a village to build this kind of project. First and foremost, I reviewed the record, the legislative record, and let me be clear that in an August work session in the hot summer of 2015, then Councilmember Stephen Schewel brought to the council the possibility of partnering with Self-Help to build 82 units of affordable housing next to the bus station. The issue was quickly taken up during the ongoing city council elections at that time. My friend Jillian Johnson, I know, was a big proponent of that project. In parallel to the work of the electoral side, the organizing and community organizing side, one of our great community organizations, Durham Can, was a huge supporter of this idea. Much of their organizing was led by my friend, now colleague, Councilmember Mark Anthony Middleton. All of which is to say that it took more than one person with a good idea. It took organizing a community in support of the idea that downtown should be for everyone and not just the wealthy. It took electoral success. It took votes, and it took the willingness to spend money and to donate land to do it. That is a recipe for success for this project and for other projects as well that I look forward to seeing come down the pike. And we're getting a great update from our community development department this week about all the amazing work that's happening. The last thing I wanted to say about this, and then I'll be done, Mr. Mayor. Our former colleague and the previous Mayor Pro Tem Coracle McFadden used to like to tell me that building buildings is great, but that's not why we do it. We do it because the buildings serve a purpose for our community and they improve the lives of real people. And when I think about the Willard Street Apartments, I think about a line from the Hamilton musical, what is a legacy? A legacy is planting seeds in a garden you never get to see. You know, families are moving into Willard Street Apartments right now that we will never meet, never know. We won't know their stories. But they will, by virtue of the fact that these apartments are affordable to working families, have the kind of stability that many of us listening to this right now take for granted. The housing stability that we all take for granted. What will these families do with that stability? That's what I think about when I think about this project and the hundreds of other projects that we can get done together in the years to come. That's what we talk about. That's what we're talking about when we say affordable housing. And that's why I'm really excited for all the families that I saw moving in this weekend at Willard Street Apartments. We're going to do a great public ribbon cutting probably in August and invite our friends at the press to come and show Durham and North Carolina and the world what you can accomplish when a community comes together. That's all I had to say tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Council Member Freelon.
Yes, Brother Reese, that was, you said everything very eloquently. I just have some very small things to add. First of all, Charlie texted me and was like, oh, make sure you book your tour. He didn't tell me about the mural. And when I came off the elevator and saw this, huge mural of my father, I just broke into tears. It was so beautiful and moving. And it made me think about something that my dad said. It was really important to him that everyone be able to experience beauty in their environment. And that's definitely what I felt when I was touring the building. And you talked about, Charlie, about the views. When you go to those corner apartments on the top floor and look down, on one side of the building, it's the Mutual Life building. And that wonderful legacy of Black Wall Street, is there, kind of showing that important legacy. And on the other side is the bus station, which my dad frequently talked about being one of his favorite designs for the very same reasons that Charlie described. It's important. When I got to the Willard Street appointment, I accidentally went into the market rate building, not realizing the difference. That's how similar they are. And when I was overlooking the bus station from a bird's eye view, that was the first time I'd seen the bus station with all the kind of angular, architectural dimensions that it has from that particular viewpoint. And it was breathtaking to look at. And so I just wanted to echo everything Charlie said. And I told the folks that gave us the wonderful tour that my dad would have been really proud to have his portrait in that building next to Ann Atwater. And I was just so thrilled to be in service when this opened up. So just, I wanted to really echo everything you said, Councilmember Reese. Thank you for encouraging me to go on the tour and not blowing the surprise, because it really caught me off guard. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council Member. And that is a fantastic family legacy. Colleagues, other announcements, Councilmember Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, good evening, colleagues, and to everyone watching. Let me express my hopes that all of our observant Jewish brothers and sisters had a good Passover celebration, and to all of our observant Christian brothers and sisters, I hope you had a wonderful Easter weekend as well. And good evening. Good to see you all. Mr. Mayor, just a couple of things, maybe two or three things very quickly. Firstly, I want to publicly acknowledge the great work of our city manager and her staff. Some watchers and regular viewers, about 8 of them, of city council meetings will recall me from time to time putting a query about some money that we had set aside for our Built to Last initiative for our shared economic prosperity plan and the development of a not-for-profit. I want to thank our city manager, Wanda Page, for doing such an excellent job in addressing those questions that I had about the use of that money. And I look forward to a robust presentation about our shared economic prosperity plan. I will not go into the specifics, but suffice it to say, it was a detailed, thorough, comprehensive explanation of a query that I put on public record. So I want to say publicly on record that those queries were addressed. And I look forward to having a fuller readout of what our plans are moving forward in light of my query and in light of my, not just mine, but our interest in our shared economic prosperity initiative, specifically Built to Last. I think it's going to be critical. And Mr. Marion, you intoned this wonderfully in State of the City addresses that you've done in the past, when you've pointed out how well Durham is doing, but also acknowledging that not all are participating in that wealth and prosperity of Durham. And I think our shared economic prosperity plan is going to be an important part of our roadmap to making sure folk, to the best of our ability, make sure that folk participate in Durham's prosperity. So my thanks to the city manager and her staff. Secondly, I want to say, Mr. Mayor, that it is no secret that we have had a very violent weekend in our city this past weekend, and that shootings in our city have been at an alarming rate, actually relative to where we were last year this time. We are on pace to either tie or outdo what we did last year, or what happened last year in terms of shootings, which is particularly disturbing because last year we were on lockdown. We were in the throes of lockdown. We had stay-at-home orders. As the weather improves and as folk are becoming more emboldened because of vaccinations, and as restrictions are being lifted, I think that creates an atmosphere where we know that we've got to be vigilant about shootings in our city. So I'm not debilitated with my concern, but I am concerned about the summer that's approaching in our city and what we are seeing now. I want to acknowledge victims and folk who are concerned about the level of gunfire in our city, particularly in our neighborhoods. Many of us will know that a 13-year-old girl lying in her bed was shot because of gunfire outside her home. There's no evidence yet that she was directly involved. This particularly struck home because the house directly next door to the house that was struck by gunfire is occupied by 2 parishioners of my church. They were startled out of their sleep by gunfire, and they immediately took up defensive positions. They scurried around, they hit the floor while gunfire rang out outside their home. One of them were one of the several calls that were placed to 911 in this particular case for responders to come and respond to the shooting. So I want to send our prayers out for a quick and speedy recovery to that 13-year-old, to the victims from this past weekend. I think it's important to keep realizing that with all that's going on in Durham, and there are wonderful things downtown and Google coming, that we still have a gunfire problem in America. No doubt, America is washing guns, but I'm a Durham elected official. Our specific iteration of the problem here in Durham, I think, should remind us and call our full attention and focus as a government. I want to, send a challenge out to all that are listening, whatever your station is in our community, whether you're a political person or a community person, to my brothers and sisters in the clergy, that this is time for all hands on deck. I also want to challenge those that enter into this debate space, who want to make prescriptions and recommendations as what we should be doing at the policy level. I think it's important for every player in this city, every organization, to issue a statement recognizing and showing solidarity with the thousands of people in our city that hear gunfire every night that's not reported. And I think it's important that we have a comprehensive conversation, but there are little boys and girls who have integrated that into their worldview, that this is just what it's like in our neighborhood. If you're serious about this conversation about reform, be it police reform or criminal justice reform, come on into the conversation. but silence about what we should be doing or recommendations about what we should be doing in the immediate, tactical, short-term sense about women and men and boys and girls in this city that experience gunfire every night. What's our plan on that? And what are we going to do on that? With all the other things we're fixing and tweaking and all the changes we want to make to systems and structures and departments, what is our statement about the immediate, short-term, right now concern about little boys and girls being trained to jump in bathtubs and jump off their bikes and duck and cover like soldiers behind garbage cans when gunfire goes off? We can't talk about the other stuff and not talk about that as well. We can't come up with prescriptions and ideas about retooling and reforming other things without talking about that as well. All of it needs to be talked about. I'm with you, but we've got to talk about that as well. And I think some more voices, while we're issuing statements on other things, need to be issuing statements about what we're going to do tonight about the boys and girls who will be ducking and covering, not just the parishioners of my church, but people like them all around the city who will be ducking and covering for gunfire. Our prayers go out once again to those that have been affected. And I just challenge us to bring the full weight, the ingenuity, the creativity, the resources of our government to bear on this issue. While we celebrate downtown, there are many outside of the downtown corridor that will be going to sleep tonight in a virtual war zone. So thank you for that. And finally, Charlie Reese, as usual, nailed everything. I wanted to say about Willard Street Apartments. They're absolutely beautiful. I have nothing to add to what he would say, except that I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, because I remember when the prospect of using city land to do affordable housing was put to council members and to you. You didn't balk, you didn't flinch, you didn't go down the litany of usual excuses about, well, you can get more money for. We had a robust conversation. I remember your willingness to shepherd that and to carry that forward on the electoral side. So I want to thank you publicly for your willingness. Charlie's right. There are so many people who had their hands in this and so many voices and so many players. But in Durham fashion, we shifted a paradigm. And as I walked through that building, I was just overtaken. I was just overcome with the beauty of it. Charlie mentioned the light, the vistas of our city. I too could not distinguish, and I deliberately looked across the street to the market rate apartments, and then at that building, couldn't make a distinction. And I want to challenge, our community development department and all our partners that anytime anybody talks about building affordable housing anywhere in the city, that we require them. I don't know if we can do this statutorily. We require them to go take a view, take a tour of Willard Street Apartments, because they are absolutely beautiful. And I want to thank our partners, Self Help and DHIC, for the wonderful work they've done, and for this council for the willingness to see it through. It was not easy. It was expensive. There are other things we could have done with the land, but when your values guide your votes and guide your policy, this is what it looks like when values rule the day in electoral politics. So congratulations, Durham. I too am excited about the families that are moving in. I know some of them personally, and I could not be more happy for them. I'm a bit jealous because they got this cool downtown address now, and I'm still schlepping it in from the suburbs, but I could not be more happy for the residents of Willard Street Apartments. God bless our city. God bless and protect our city. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all.
Thank you, Council Member. Other announcements, colleagues? Council Member Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's always a pleasure to follow the gentlemen on our council and hear all their announcements beforehand. It's helpful. I had to make a few notes and I really wanted to shift the dialogue, but I'll start with the Willard Street Apartments. I just wanted to make sure that we tackle that. I didn't leave it hanging, that folks actually with the subsidy for housing choice vouchers actually do pay rent. And so it's dependent on their income, and just noting that I didn't want to leave this conversation without noting that, but they may have to pay out of pocket. And I do want to note that in my tour, I was really trying to get to what the maintenance plan will look like, because I live across the street from Calvary Apartments and Franklin Street and East Main Street, which are all apartment complexes that were built as affordable housing and currently have maintenance issues that will need to be addressed as they figure out whether or not they're going back to Durham Housing Authority or not. And so just acknowledging that this conversation is not ending. We're at the beginning, even though the first phase of the housing has been built. The second phase will need to be done. And then there also needs to be a plan around maintenance, and just acknowledging that the rents may not cover that, and that this setup. Other than that, I really appreciated the opportunity to be there and to see the work of what we all have been pushing for in our community. I know myself as a resident and others as well, prior to this coming together, all were excited about it. And I just want to echo a few times how the mayor has encouraged us to figure out what it's going to look like, because these were very expensive apartments to actually build. And so what it's going to look like sustainably will be important over the next few years. I did want to circle back to the COVID conversation, acknowledging that folks are still passing. I think there's been some, that tenseness of trying to get out has created a space where people are trying to figure out what's next and how they can move forward. And I want to encourage folks to continue to wear their masks, socially distance, and to wash their hands as frequently as possible, because COVID is still with us and people are still losing their family members. And it's important to keep that at the forefront. I did want to note that Communities in Partnership, along with PEACH, Partnership Effort for the Advancement of Children's Health, held a vaccine event at the Impact Team building and vaccinated over 270 residents here in Durham that were over 75% Black and Latinx. I will also note that War for Life has actually implemented putting a local local public transportation bus to work as a mobile vaccine unit. They're working to figure out how to align the vaccines in a mobile way for folks, not just here in Durham, but across the state. And so they are actually looking to do COVID related education and vaccines and testing all in a mobile bus vehicle. And I thought that was a phenomenal idea that Jason Williams with War for Life pulled together with his team of folks like Donald Hughes and Jessica Hulk and a few others, just to make sure that they were covering some of the issues that kept coming up in our conversations at the COVID task force meetings for the African American community. And I would like to note that they were trying to make sure that they were readily available for both English and Spanish speakers. I also want to note that the Durham Together for Resilient Youth has been actively working with community health workers to try and make sure that people are out in the community continuing to have the conversations where they are as trusted resources. And I just don't want us to turn our eyes away from COVID and to drop the ball. I appreciate Councilmember Caballero keeping that sign up in the background so that folks know that it's our focus. I really, really am excited about this Google conversation and the jobs that they will bring. It was even more exciting to hear one of their representatives talking about how they would love to have the North Carolina Central, Durham Tech, and Duke all involved in making sure that they're developing programming or certificates or coursework that would align. What I was concerned about is how DPS was not included in that conversation. I would love to figure out how we can support as a city through our workforce development department, acknowledging that we're talking about summer youth programs. This would be a great opportunity to get some of those youth lined up for some of that. I'm more than excited. I think there's opportunity where all these challenges lies. I had the unfortunate opportunity to spend the early part of the afternoon with the family who experienced that loss in Emery Woods Estates, and just acknowledging that this is the neighborhood who expressed very kind of off-puttingly how they were concerned about the new townhomes coming into their neighborhood and not having more crime in their community, and trying to actually navigate what it means for there to actually be a shooting in a neighborhood where they haven't had one in over 20 or 30 years. And I am more than, it's been an emotional afternoon. And I just want to note that, to Councilmember Middleton's point, it is going to really be important to figure out what we are going to do next, because it is not something that both City United's going to be able to do without us. And it's not something that the police department's going to be able to do without us. It's got to be something that we're all working together on. And so I know we're talking about the universal basic income. I talked about how that pilot would be phenomenal. It would be great to have, but it would not be enough. And we need to find a way to make that sustainable. And so I think that the ideas are here and the effort is here, but we've got to figure out ways to make it work. And so I am just mindful, just coming back with all of those thoughts. So thank you for allowing me to share those.
Council member. Colleagues, further announcements? All right, I have a couple of announcements. One is usually we have a proclamation for the Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation, but instead of a proclamation this evening, the Water Management Department asked me to just say a few words about the Mayor's Challenge. As my colleagues know, the Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation is sponsored by the Weiland Foundation. Usually when we make this proclamation, Wayne Drop is with us, but unfortunately we won't be able to see Wayne Drop tonight, but hopefully next year. This is the 10th annual challenge, and the challenge is a friendly competition between cities across the country. And so what we're doing is just encouraging residents to make a series of simple online commitments to reduce water waste, pollution, and explore ways to improve the health of the Durham community. Taking the Mayor's Water Challenge is free. It only takes about 2 minutes, and participants can win eco-friendly prizes. The challenge is available for the full month of April, and I urge everyone in Durham to take the pledge at mywaterpledge.com. Let me just say that usually Durham is among the cities that does the best in this challenge. Our residents commit to various specific actions to save a whole lot of water, and that's very important. So check it out at mywaterpledge.com. And then another announcement that I want to make, the folks who have in public health at Duke and in Durham County Public Health have asked me to give a shout out to Durham Parks and Rec for working so closely with them on getting the Wheels vaccination site set up. As you all know, Southern High School was no longer available when school started. And so can I use the word pivot? We pivoted to the most overused, I think that'll be word of the year for the pandemic. The folks who are working on this pivoted. We moved the site to Wheels, and I was asked to give a public shout out to Durham Parks and Rec for the great work that they did to help make that happen. So shout out to Parks and Rec. All right. Councilmember Reese feels like unprecedented might be the word of the year, and we'll see. All right, colleagues, we'll now move to priority items by our city manager. Madam Manager.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of the Durham City Council. I do not have any priority items for you this evening.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Madam Attorney.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. It's good to see you. I also do not have any priority items tonight.
Thank you very much, Madam Attorney. Madam Clerk.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Madam Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I do have one item. It does not require a vote. Just to let you know that the February 18th, 2021 draft minutes were revised and then reposted, and that is my priority item this evening.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
Colleagues, will now move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of items that the council has considered and worked on previously. It can be approved by a single vote of the council. Items can be pulled from the consent agenda by a member of the council or a member of the public, in which case the item will be held for consideration at the end of the meeting. Under the consent agenda, item 1, approval of city council minutes. Item 2, Durham Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission appointment. Item 3, procurement card performance audit dated February 2021. Item 4, selection of the external auditor. Item 5, FY 2021-22 budget development guidelines. Item 6, bid report, February 2021. Item 7, change order 7 with LaChase Construction Services LLC for the City Hall HVAC and electrical renovation project. Item 8, city code revisions for work conducted in the right-of-way. Item 9, contract amendment number 2 to contract ST301C paving services 2020. Item 10, contract amendment number 1 to contract WS86D professional services for water and sewer extension. Item 11, Triangle Region Solid Waste Consortium Memorandum of Agreement. Colleagues, you have now heard the consent agenda, and I will accept a motion for their approval.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Freeland, seconded by Councilmember Reese. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Schul,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Aye.
thank you. Councilmember Caballero,
Aye.
Councilmember Freelon,
Aye.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
Councilmember Middleton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reese.
Aye.
Thank you.
Colleagues, that concludes our agenda for tonight. I'm afraid that next meeting will not be this brief, so let's enjoy this one. Thank you all so much. Thanks to our staff. We will see you all at Thursday at the work session. And I'm now going to declare this meeting adjourned at 7:45 p.m. Good night, everybody.
Good night.